Joining us now, she is the associate head coach at Minnesota. She's been there now a couple of seasons. Of course, was a great player at Florida State, an All-American at FSU, played in the NPF, has done it all, pretty much most of everything in this sport. We speak of Carly Wynn, who we're excited to have here on the show for the first time. Good to see you, Coach. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Eric. I really appreciate you having me. It'll be fun to get to talk about some of this stuff.
Well, let's talk about your team currently here. How has the fall gone? And now you're getting set. You're going to open the season in Orlando here, part of a tough non-conference schedule, which is nice to say since you didn't get to play one last year. So what has that been like, what you've all this year?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. It is we have a very tough pre-conference schedule that it's going to be pretty grueling, but we're excited about, they always say you got to play the best and beat the best if you want to be the best. So that's kind of how we lined it up this year, and excited to open up at UCF. Obviously have a little bit of history there, and just be able to go back will be pretty exciting. I think our team this year, it's interesting because it feels like we have a lot of newness because we graduated so many super seniors last year, but we don't necessarily have a ton of new people. It doesn't feel like it's just people who are finally getting opportunities and ability, to kind of insert themselves and step up. And we have gotten a couple transfers as well. And so we do obviously have some new people, but overall we do have quite a bit returning. So it'll be fun to see how everyone steps up for sure.
When you look back at last year, where you all had to go through play a conference-only schedule, you end up getting shipped out west to a tough regional UCLA with a really good Fresno team at UCLA. What did you learn about your group, especially the returners that are coming back? What did you take from last year?
Obviously you're happy that you're happy you get an opportunity when you go to postseason. And like I alluded to earlier, it almost doesn't matter who you play, but certainly heading down to the number 2 seed wasn't quite how we had drawn it up, but the response immediately from, quite a few girls on our team was, let's go. I think we can beat them. And just, obviously that wasn't how it played out, but we played them in a really tough game. And I think just the resurgence of, COVID, and they dealt with it the year before, and then having to do conference only. It was, everyone's happy that we got to play, but it definitely felt very different last year. And this year will be the closest to back to normal, I think. And so I feel for the super seniors that didn't really get to, I guess, feel that normalcy within their year, but I mean, they didn't complain, and our girls were, where are we going? Let's go. They were so excited to be able to travel because, it was very much bubble feel last year. When you're at home, they literally enjoyed traveling more last year than they did playing at home, as sad as that sounds, because they got to be together so much more. And when we're at home, there's just, there's lots of other people inserting themselves into like the bubble, so they felt a lot of camaraderie, and they just built so much more when we were on the road last year. So just the opportunity to be able to travel and go play, it was like, yeah, let's go. So just the grit and the drive, the push through from those kids was really impressive. Oh, Eric, I lost you on your.
Nope, I got you.
Oh, there you go.
I got you. You mentioned you lost some great seniors, among them being Amber Pfizer in the circle. But what was impressive last year is you had Autumn Pease, who really stepped up for you last year. 1.75 ERA, 12-3. I think kind of went under the radar. Pitched well in the regionals, which surprised some people. That has to be a big benefit to get her back and have that experience behind her after losing a great player like Pfizer.
It's a huge benefit. You can't replace an Amber Pfizer and what she was able to do for this program. And to see her and Autumn work hand in hand so well last year, I think it gave Autumn an opportunity to come into her own. She got handed the ball in big games, and the year before she didn't have the same amount of opportunities because Amber hit her streak, so to see her answer that and step up the way she did was pretty amazing. She's funny. She's a very like even keel, she's very sarcastic, and just to see her in those moments, she is a complete bulldog, for lack of a less cliche term. When she gets on the mound, she's one of the ones that's like, give me the ball, like I want the ball. And to see her have that, and knowing that Amber obviously was always there, I'm sure was a little bit helpful for her. But I don't she's going to need that at all this year. She's excited for the opportunity to step into that number one role. And quite frankly, last year it was kind of a 1A, 1B. They battled each other for big games, and that was awesome to have. But we're excited for, the new ones that we have coming in and new ones to get opportunities. So
tell us about the rest of the staff behind her, because you mentioned nobody knew about maybe Autumn at this point last year, and she rose to the occasion. So you're probably Coach Ritter, and I got to talk to Coach Ritter last year, and obviously she's one of the best pitching minds. Somebody will probably step up, and that's one of the things you'll find out early in non-conference. So talk about the rest of the arms you got.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a sophomore named Ansley Hollifield. She's from Georgia. She's one of our more athletic pitchers. She's one of the most athletic kids, pitchers specifically that I've ever coached, which is interesting. She came in and actually recorded our fastest 20-yard time last year, which is kind of funny. And Nat Denhartog would probably kill me for saying that because she's since, risen above Ansley in that category. She's extremely competitive. But, I think Ansley's tools complement our staff well. I'm kind of honestly excited to see what she's going to do. She didn't get innings for us last year, so she's not tested. But, we go out, we scrimmage on the weekend, she competes, and now she's going to get, some opportunities. And I think that's part of the exciting part about coaching is what are they going to do with those opportunities? So she's a sophomore coming for us, and Emily Levitt is a freshman coming in. She's from Southern California. Last summer, her team actually won the, PGF Nationals, and she actually got to pitch in the game that they won in. So she's definitely felt what it's like to win at a high level and played for a very highly competitive team. And so I'm also excited to kind of see what she's going to do. It'll be really interesting. We'll have a lot of, we have quite the veteran in Autumn, and then behind her is a lot of people that are just going to get opportunities, and we're going to see who steps up.
Offensively, you lose some big pieces there. Obviously, Partaine's a name that certainly comes to mind, but she's not the only one. But you mentioned Natalie DeHartog. She returns. Ellie Jensen returns. Just talk about the returners offensively and who's kind of the leader. I would assume Natalie's among the top at the leader of the team.
Certainly. Natalie's definitely a leader in the offensive category. I mean, leading the conference home runs last year. It's cool to see the people, we came in and Natalie already did a lot of things very well. It's not like we're taking credit for half of what she's done, so she's already done a lot of things really well. And she's been very open to continuing to improve, her skill set. And I think that's fantastic. And I think she has improved. So I'm really excited to see how she's going to compete and, stand up next to, because we're going to face a lot different pitching too this year because we're not conference only. So excited to see what we get from her there. Ellie Jensen, when you look at Ellie's numbers, her best games were always against the higher level pitching. And so I'm excited to kind of see what she's going to do with that. She's battled injuries throughout her career and she's better than she's ever been right now. So, her being able to continue to kind of press and push our offense and be kind of table setter for us will be awesome. We do have a couple transfers in Lauren Esplin and McKenna Dowell, and they've come in and fit in very seamlessly. I think those are two offensively that are going to be ones to watch, quite frankly. They're different. They're very, I think they came in being a more so gap to gap, and I've really just seen their power improve over the course of the fall. So I don't quite know how they're going to fall, if they're more of just getting on base and scoring runs for us, or, they might be the McKenna Parkins, who maybe that's more of their high element of their game, but they're still going to tweak a few across, I think. So excited to see kind of how they fit into that role. And quite frankly, we have Megan Dre, we have Sydney Strelo, Sarah Kinch, all who got significant innings for us last year, especially offensively. And I think that our lineup's just going to be a little bit deeper this year than we were last year. So I'm excited to see what that is going to be. We had quite a few kids last year who contributed heavily, and they were staples in our lineup. But I think this year we're just going to have more people contributing across the board. So as a coach, that's kind of nice. You're happy when anybody's up at the plate and excited for them to get an opportunity to put some runs across.
Some of the freshmen you've got, who you intrigued to see that contribute offensively or defensively for that matter? Because you guys have been defense. You take a lot of pride on your defense as well.
Yeah, no, we do. And, I think you mentioned offensively, but specifically, I do think that Emily Levitt is going to be somebody, she's a pitcher, but I do think that she's going to be somebody that's really going to step up and going to get some good opportunities. be able to contribute for us. So I think that is a freshman that you'll definitely be talking about, so to speak. Other than that, I think Lonni is somebody that we picked up she's from Georgetown, Kentucky. She's a very versatile kid, utility kid. She's gonna be more of your, like, she gets her hacks in. She's not afraid. Like, if she swings and miss, she's like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna swing harder next time, So I think that's a special passion as a freshman, to be okay looking kind of silly sometimes, but when she squares it up, it goes a long way. And so we're definitely excited for her and kind of what she's going to contribute for us. And then in our infield, Kayla Chavez is looking at possibly getting some significant innings at third base for us. She played on the same travel ball team as Emily Levitt. So they also, like I mentioned before, they won the PGF Nationals. She is a tough out. She is very unassuming, lower pieces, but she's a scrawny little freshman right now. And, when she gets in the box, she's just very unassuming, and she is a tough out. So I think she's going to be really fun to watch.
You're all not being shy about your non-conference schedule. You're making up for not playing one last year. You're going to open in Orlando to play Georgia, UCF, Longwood, and Fresno. Then you go to a place you're quite familiar with. You're going to go to Phoenix to play Grand Canyon. But then you go to Tempe, Arizona to face your old friends at Arizona State a couple times. You got Illinois State, Cal there. You're playing at a great tournament in Charlotte that's got Wichita State, Northern Iowa, Charlotte in the tournament. You're playing other tournaments, Stanford and Stillwater with Oklahoma State. Oh, yeah, you're playing Oklahoma and Norman. You're playing Texas and us. Wow, this is assigning the schedule here.
The most competitive person on our staff, Coach Ritter.
Yeah, that is amazing schedule. But that's been their philosophy. And I know Coach Ritter was on the staff when they made the World Series in 2019. And part of the reason you were a top 8 national seed because of your tough non-conference schedule. And part of it, I would assume, you want to learn about your team. You want to be battle tested when you get into conference play, I would assume.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it on the head. And let's call a spade a spade. Minnesota had a tough go at it a few years ago when they weren't chosen to host. And if non-conference scheduling had anything to do with that, we're making sure that isn't the case. So we're going to go out and we're exactly like you said, we're just making up for some lost time. We're going to be very battle tested going into conference. And I think that is going to help us at least be prepared for what it's like to get us back, hopefully, to the Women's College World Series.
Was that one of the things you took? I mean, I wouldn't say take for granted, but maybe you appreciate more is playing those non-conference games. We had Coach Gascoigne on from Northwestern, and she told us, she admits, she took the midweeks for granted. She didn't realize how important, how much she would miss that until last year, where there was no midweek non-conference games. That with the competition in that region. What are some of the things you all kind of appreciate more now that, as you mentioned, the non-conference schedule, the travel? What are some of the things now you appreciate maybe more, either as a staff and as players?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think you do take it for granted. You don't realize it as much. It's part of, there's a lot of kids on the team now. It's going to a place they've never been. It's having to jump into competition. I mean, there's information on everybody, don't get me wrong, but the level of preparation for a team that you play in conference is going to be different than a level of preparation you have for out of conference, based on availability of information. We obviously have years and years and years of data and video on conference opponents, and it's not quite the same when you're going into non-conference opponents. So I think just kind of hey, this is what we got, this is what we know, let's go out and play softball, I think is something that I really enjoy at the beginning of the year, because it's kind of seeing not only how well they make adjustments, which is a normal part of the game, but how well they deal with the adversity of maybe not know, I didn't know that this kid was that good, or I didn't know that this kid had that, or, it's just kind of the availability of the information, I think, is a little bit different at the beginning of the year. And it very quickly catches up, as you well know, but that's something that I really enjoy, is just being able to say, hey, this is what we got. Let's go out and get them. Because sometimes, you go into postseason and there may be a lot of information on some and not very much on others. And if you haven't prepared for that at all, it can be overwhelming to some who like to feel like they're really prepared. So I think that those are kind of aspects that get taken for granted as well.
I mentioned you're going to be playing in Tempe against Arizona State. You're familiar with Coach Ford because you spent a lot of time there at Arizona State and with her at Fresno. What got you interested in coming to Minnesota? What got you in? You and Coach Richardson came to Minnesota to join Coach Ritter when she became the head coach a couple of years ago. What was it about Minnesota that got you to say, "Hey, I need to take that opportunity"?
I was very happy at ASU. I think, I've been with Coach Ford for so long, and that's phenomenal. I don't know if you see that a lot anymore in our game. There's just less and less of coaches sticking around for long periods of time, and that's fine. But we definitely had a very special relationship. She's a fantastic lady. But the opportunity to come to an area I'd never been, I had no experience in the Midwest, right? Obviously played on the East Coast, coached at Fresno before that, being completely on the West Coast, and even Arizona is still mostly, West Coast, although we did recruit a little bit from the Midwest for sure. But just to be able to come to an area I hadn't been in. Coach Ritter, I had actually met. You meet people through the coaching ranks and camps and all that stuff. But I had met her also and got to know her a little bit through Coach Richardson. And Coach Richardson, honestly, we hit it off really well at ASU. And so it was an opportunity to go coach in an area I haven't, for two people that I think are phenomenal people. A promotion, Coach Ritter, being very selfless human being that she is, was like, I don't care that it's my first year as a head coach. Like, I would love to have you. I'd love for you to be my associate head coach. I mean, that's pretty phenomenal too. And to be able to just, like I said, go and win. Winning was kind of an important thing for me. I mean, obviously fortunate enough with my circles to be successful in a lot of the areas that we've been in. And I wouldn't have left if it wasn't for a program I feel like could win. So, them coming off of a hot 2019 at the World Series was an opportunity for me to have a lot of my buckets filled. And so I just jumped at the opportunity.
So what's it been like working for Coach Ritter? And then obviously Caitlin Richardson, who's one of the greats to wear the Gopher colors. We've had her on before when she was playing in the pros. What has that dynamic been like, and how does that work? Because we know Coach Ritter handles the pitchers, but how do you and Coach, work all the kind of the responsibilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Ritter does the pitchers and she does the catching. Richardson does the infield and the hitting, and I assist Coach Richardson with the hitting, and I do the outfield and the base running. So it's been pretty phenomenal. I think we're not always best friends all the time. I don't think it's healthy to be best friends all the time. You have to, if you're all yes people, then there's a lot of yeses, and we're not challenging each other. So we're not always best friends, but we really honestly do love each other and we get along very well. So I think, when we do have recruits on campus, we joke about it and they're like, yeah, we can tell you guys get along, so it's been pretty fun to have such a healthy work relationship with those two. And, it's nice to be at and around each other all day at work and still not mind going and grabbing a coffee or something later in the day, with the same group of people. So Coach Ritter does a phenomenal job with the pitchers. I mean, her record speaks for itself, but she also does a phenomenal job of allowing Coach Richardson and myself to be ourselves and to have the autonomy in our positions. She never asks me, hey, what's the plan for outfield today? Or what's the plan for hitting today? She just trusts that we're doing what we need to be doing. And she comes over and checks it all out because she's the head coach. But at the end of the day, it's like, if this is what you think we need to be doing, then that's what we're going to do, because she trusts us, and that's pretty great.
What was the adjustment like for you? Was it an easy transition? What was the transition like? Like you mentioned, you've never been to the Midwest before, and obviously you're inheriting new players. So what was that like in the transition period?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to leave. I mean, you love your kids, and I'd been there for 4 years, and that piece of it is always hard. It was the same way at Fresno. But coming in, they have a thing here. They call it Minnesota nice. So people are very nice in Minnesota, and apparently so much so that it's like a thing. I would say that the transition was honestly as smooth as I could have hoped for. The kids they're phenomenal human beings, and they were very accepting and welcoming, regardless. So, it's tough because you just won and been successful with one group, and then people come in, and obviously Coach Ritter taking the head coaching position, I'm sure, was a big piece of that, but they have a lot of trust in her and her ability to bring in people. So the girls are great. They were very welcoming. Coach Richardson being, one of my really good friends, we stayed in touch after she left ASU, and that helped. And, she had friends here because she played here, which also helped, kind of meeting people and doing that stuff. And it turns out, even though my path has been all warm places, that I really like the cold. So it has been actually pretty awesome. Yeah.
Who knew that? Go figure.
I know. I always told people that, but I didn't have proof because they're like, yeah, okay, you don't know what cold is. So
Well, that's pretty wild. I live in Florida. I can tell you we've got a cold front. Man, I don't like it. So we'll see if you like it. If it's still, it might still be around when you get down here to Florida. Was coaching always in your plans when you were as you were playing? How did the coaching idea come about? Was it something you always wanted to do, or did it just evolve?
It evolved for sure. I was kind of that typical student athlete that's like, I just want to play softball. Like, I'll major in what I need to major in, and I just want to play, but I have no clue what I want to do with my life. And I will say, I loved Graf and I loved Louis, and them getting me to Florida State was the best decision of my life. But when Lonni came in, she just helped me see the game in different ways. And it was kind of because of that and her involvement in my development as a player and see what she did. It was kind of that reason is a big reason as to why I got into coaching. So when I went to Fresno, I remember feeling how much of an impact Lonni had on me, and it made me feel like I had an opportunity to do that for other people. So that's a big piece as to why I kind of ended up where I did.
Well, let's kind of go back. How did you end up at Florida State playing for Coach Graf? What was that process like? And when you decided, hey, I want to play softball at FSU?
Yeah, I committed early, and I committed like 3 months before my senior year. So, now that's like crazy, but at the time it was like revolutionary, so, yeah, Louis, I don't know I think it was Louis. I don't even remember at this point if it was Coach Louis or Coach Graf that saw me first, but I just remember them. They were very present. They were at a lot of games. They came to my high school tournaments and games, and it ultimately I knew I wanted to be at a bigger school. I wanted to be at like a bigger football school. And so I narrowed it down to a few and was just fortunate that they wanted me. And I felt like I had an opportunity to make an impact early as far as getting playing time and doing those things. And so that's kind of, oh, and honestly, I will say one of my good friends at the time, my teammate, was going to Florida State, and she had committed a couple months earlier, and that was a huge reason as to why I think I ended up there, because she was going, and I think they were coming to watch her, and we're like, oh, this kid's not bad, So
Yeah, it worked out. I mean, you're in the top 10 in a lot of their categories, record-wise, offensively, and everything. You're all over the record books, and you're a unique perspective because you played for Coach Graf. You'd be the last group in '08 that she would play for Coach Graf before she retired. And you were part of that transition from Coach Graf to Coach Lonni, obviously Lonni coming from UNLV at the time. What was that like, going from Coach Graf to Coach Lonni Alameda there, and that transition?
Coach Alameda was a little bit more like video driven. So we watched a lot of video and broke down a lot of things. At the time, Angel Santiago and Sarah Pickering were with her, and they were very willing to do the same. I remember I felt like they really connected with us, which was pretty cool. I think just because Coach Graf had been there for so long, that was kind of all we knew, and they were Coach Graf and Coach Louis were the first ones to joke with us. We had great relationships with them as well, but it can get hard to build a lot of new relationships quickly. And I think that they managed that piece of it really well. But from a specific standpoint, they were just very video driven. And I do remember feeling like I didn't know how to play softball for a little while when they came in, because they were breaking down so many things in an awesome way, but just I had never done that before. And so I now tell my players that, like, it's okay if you feel like you don't know how to play softball for a little while, but yeah. So it was a fantastic transition. I mean, I think now they're all like very well connected, and we're all happy when Florida State does well and all that stuff. So,
but you were part of that process, and you stayed on her staff. You joined her staff after your playing days. What was that like? How did that conversation take place? And obviously that was a big, you mentioned it earlier, that was a big moment there to get you into coaching. And as we'll talk in a little bit, get you out to the West Coast and get some big opportunities. But you stayed on with Coach Alameda and be part of her staff.
Yeah, I think, I felt like she really invested in me as a player. And it wasn't the plan. Actually, it kind of fell into place. I was gone that summer playing in the pro league, and she called me at the end of June and was like, "Hey, my GA spot just fell through. I need somebody. Would you want to stay on?" And so it for me it was like, I mean, it's June and I still don't know what I'm doing in August. I had applied to grad school at Florida State as like a maybe I'll go back, just because it was like $30 to apply or whatever, So I'm like, I might as well submit an application. I don't really know what I'm doing yet, so I might end up back in grad school. And so when she called me and said that, I was like, yes, I want to come back. I will help you with whatever you need. And she was very willing to help me grow as more than, because, I wasn't a player anymore. So she was, I was in all the meetings. I did everything that all the other assistant coaches did. She allowed me to like be a part of, which was really cool. And I think that helped a lot with getting me to where I went.
That's remarkable. Like,
yeah,
on a chance like that, like, can you, like, have you ever thought about, like, what if that grad assistant would have stayed on and you didn't get that call? Where you be right now?
It really is. Like I said, it just fell into place, and I do think that things happen for a reason, and I was very fortunate. So
you then get an opportunity to go to Fresno State and join Coach Ford and company and coach some great Fresno State teams. Coach, Compton, the great pitcher there, some of the great players they've had there. How did that opportunity come about? And obviously, Coach Ford is a big impact in your career because you obviously was on her staff at Fresno, and then when they both moved on to Arizona State.
Yeah, so Lonni asked me that summer, would you be willing to move to California? And I said no. And she said, okay, well, there's Fresno State has a job opening, but if you don't want to go to California, that's fine. Okay, well, I don't, So then we kind of moved on, and I went on a couple job interviews, and for whatever reason, it just kept like sitting in the back of my mind, like, you need to entertain this. You need to entertain this. So I ended up asking Lonni if it was too late. Can I talk to Coach Ford? And she said, actually, I think it's still open. So let me call her. And come to find out later, Trisha said one of the reasons that she hired me was she's like, I've never heard Lonni talk as much about anybody the way she talked about you. So I owe a lot to her and to Lonni for talking me up, and for Trisha, because that was my first full-time job. She was taking a risk on somebody who had never coached before. And, I think it ended up working out really well. So
that's incredible. That's a good endorsement there. And you got to play Coach Brenda Moss, who was there, who's a great player in the MPF and MVP in the league. Yeah. What was it like coaching her? And then you had the great pitcher, Joe Compton. You won some Mountain West championships during your time there.
Absolutely. Brenna was a complete spitfire in all the best ways. We actually butted heads at the beginning a little bit because she was so much of a spitfire that we're like, hey, we got to figure out how to harness this a little bit, and now, she's somebody that will call and reach out for no reason, and we'll just say hi, and it doesn't happen often, but I think that's why you do it, is just to build those kind of connections. But she was incredibly instinctual on the bases. I've coached very few kids like her on the bases, and just her overall athleticism, it was kind of spoke for itself. I'd teach her something and it would be like 2 weeks and she'd have it down, and you're like, all right, cool, let's move on. But I always joke that she made me look really good because she had phenomenal range in the outfield. So if they hit it to the outfield, she usually caught it, and it was like, all right, well, I'm doing my job. So, it was pretty awesome. But and then Jill was somebody who was kind of opposite. Like, Brenna kind of exuded confidence and kind of had to find it and come into her own, and her stats for themselves. You wouldn't think that somebody who goes on to the pro league, would have any issues with figuring out who they were. But I think she had one of the best changeups I've ever seen, and that was impressive. It taught me a lot about having a changeup, I'll tell you that much, because she was phenomenal. So
you go to Arizona State, and you're part of that Women's College World Series appearance there in 2018. I got to see that in person. What was that like for you to be in OKC there that year?
It was awesome. I remember practicing on the field and it feeling really big and powerful, But I actually remember when the game started, I expected that to be kind of like on overdrive. But I remember thinking how much it still just felt like a normal softball game and how cool that was. I'm in the little coach's box, doing the same thing I had done for the other 60 games before it. And I just remembered thinking it's almost like there's so many people that it kind of, I'm not gonna say it drowns out because that's not true, but you definitely feel like you're kind of like on the field alone a little bit more. And so I would imagine as a pitcher, that's terrifying, but as a coach, it's great, so it was really cool. It was a very special experience. Not everybody gets to do it. So to be able to do it early in my career was great.
Right. I mean, that was something that you probably, when you were a player, you were circling to go because Florida State had been a World Series perennial team under Coach Graf and company. How do you describe Carly Wynn, the coach, versus Carly Wynn, the player? How are they different? How are they the same? If they're in the same room, how is that conversation?
I'd probably hate myself as a player. Equally competitive. I'm very competitive. Lonni told me that after I graduated, that's one of the first words she would use to describe me. So I'm equally competitive. I think as a coach, I've learned to be very, is not the right word, but I'm very even keeled on the field for the most part. I'm not super animated, good, bad, or otherwise. I'll tell you, if we walk off a game and win, like you'll see me jumping up and down like crazy. But other than that, I'm pretty, until the game's over, I'm pretty even keel. So I try to be the same all the time for my kids. And as a player, I wasn't good at that. I was very emotionally high and low. And I think I got better as I got older, but I'm on a different level as a coach than I was as a player for sure.
You've been around a lot of great coaches. I mean, really, Coach Graf, Coach Lonni, Trisha Ford, Coach Piper now. But even when you were a student athlete on campus, you had Mike Martin Sr. there at baseball. You had Bobby Bowden, who just passed away, unfortunately, in football. Leonard Hamilton was just starting there, I believe, at basketball. Sue Semaral. I think we even Mark Kikorian, the soccer coach, who's obviously built the deal. I mean, you've been around a lot of great coaches. What has that been like? I mean, I would imagine it was almost like you were destined to have to be a coach when you're around these people, don't you?
I haven't thought of it quite like that, but I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you. I mean, I work hard, but I am extremely fortunate in my path because of the people that I've been blessed to be. I mean, Lonni didn't recruit me. I ended up at Florida State because of Coach Graf and Coach Louie, and Lonni was the reason I got my first job. So my circles, I've been very fortunate with my circles, and I can't think of any particular reason as to why it happened to me, but I'm definitely fortunate and blessed. And just like you said, I mean, Coach Ritter is one of the best. Coach Ritter and Coach Ford and Lonni are all three probably the top three pitching coaches in the country, So the fact that I've been able to be around them is phenomenal. When I played at Florida State, Buster Posey was there.
Oh, that's right.
I'm not that he's a coach, but I remember watching him play baseball, and he played all 9 positions one game, and it was like, who does this? So. Some people are just fortunate, and I'm the first one to admit that I'm one of those people.
That's right. Buster Posey and you were at the same time on campus. I completely forgot. That's a good memory. Oh, yeah. It's one of these, probably gonna be a future Hall of Famer, world champion with the Giants. I mean, you probably followed him really closely throughout his career there, and plus you had a lot of great football players too around that campus at that time.
Absolutely.
That's pretty wild. I'm trying to remember now, like Peter Warwick, Chris Winkie, where they're before you. They were before you. So you were towards the end of the bout. Well, that's right. You were there too for the end of the Bowden era into the Jimbo Fish era. So you were all part of all transitions. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Is a head coach something you would want to do down the road? You're still young in your coaching career. Is that something you have a goal? Is that something you think about, or is that not something you even cross your mind?
I mean, I've certainly thought about it. I think, when you get to a high level, it's hard not to think about it. But I also I'm so fortunate with where I'm at right now. I have a a lot of the head coach luxuries, for lack of a better word, but I don't have half the responsibility because I'm not. So, I think being here has been an awesome and just different experience, which is why I came in the first place. And it has been exactly what I hoped it would be. But it's not off the table, but it's not something I'm staring down the mouth either. So.
Couple of things, but you mentioned obviously we're at the World Series. They've expanded the schedule after last year and the controversy with last year. As somebody who's coached in the World Series, what was your reaction to all of that and now that schedule being expanded, extending the tournament?
Oh, I mean, I love it. I think, our game is growing at an incredible rate, and you work so hard all year to get to that point. I mean, I was on a call earlier today where we're talking about, just conference championships in general. And it's like, why are we playing a game at 11 a.m.? Like, it's, when you're talking about getting there to warm up and doing all that stuff, like it's early, for it to be a championship, or even the championship tournament, like you want to be at your best. And that's the whole point. And I think that's, expanding the schedule to give the opportunity to the athletes to be at their best. And that's why we're doing it. So I think it makes total sense. I'm very glad they made the change.
Instant replay will now also be a part of the game, during postseason and then at select places. How does your reaction to that? And from a Big Ten standpoint, how does that affect the Big Ten? Is that something that is on the table for this year, or is that still a work in progress?
We're going to do it at our conference championship. Michigan State's hosting our conference championship. So we're also going to do it anytime we play Michigan State, because we're going to essentially like troubleshoot it throughout the year.
Okay.
Which will be, I think is smart. You don't want to jump into the conference championship and feel like you don't know what you're doing. So that's pretty much the game plan from our conference standpoint. I mean, I'm excited about it. I think, I'm hoping it alleviates maybe the smallest amount of pressure on the umpires. I think we ask a lot of the umpires with a lot of the rules that we have, and at the end of the day, we need them to call safe and out, fair and foul, and balls and strikes, and it's like we're putting all of these other rules in play in the game, and it just becomes a lot for them to manage. So having the video replay hopefully will take a little bit of pressure off of them, because it's like, all right, well, if you don't get it right, then let's go back and let's look and get it right. So.
And then they tweaked the out of the box rule. It used to be an automatic out if the hitter was out of the box. Now it's a strike, or you could take the result of the play. Do you like the change there?
I do like the change there. I think the out of the box was a really impactful on the game. And I think now it mirrors more of the penalty for the illegal pitch. We changed that years ago because for the same reason, we just felt like it was too much of an impact. And I think that this aligns more closely with that, and that the penalty for it seems too severe. So it makes sense to me. I like it. Two
last things. When people that didn't see you play, how would you describe you as a player?
I mean, I did say competitive earlier, and I know that's cliche. I didn't like to get beat the same way twice, I guess. Would be maybe something I said. And again, I got much better at that as I got older, not when I was younger, but I did try to learn and grow throughout the game. And I think that helped as I got older to be a little more successful.
And how would you describe your coaching style?
I think my kids know that I love them. And I think that's probably the first thing that they would say about me. And the second would be that they didn't know the outfield could do so many things, because no one expects me to break down outfield to the extent that they probably feel like I do. And so I remember a girl sending me off one year and saying, I didn't know, if you thought that outfield was just catching fly balls, you're dead wrong. Go ask Coach Wynn. So that's probably how they describe me, as the outfield coach.
Where does that come from? That extra fire, the outfield there. What was that? Something natural that came to you as a player? Was that something you just evolved? How did that come from?
I think for me, it was something that was a little bit more. I was born with it. I mean, if you grow up playing outfield, you probably love it because you get so little action, or like you're standing out there, a lot of nothing for a long time. But I liked it was like high risk, high reward. If you're running down a fly ball and you make a great catch, everyone's pumped. And if you don't catch it, nobody expects you to anyway. So I like the challenge of can I get to this ball before it finds the ground, So I like that aspect of it.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. Last question. What's going to be the keys for your team to accomplish your internal goals? What are going to be the key factors?
We're going to need some new people to step up. I think we're going to need, in the circle, Autumn's going to need one of our other pitchers on staff to step up. And I think, honestly, we're going to have to be a really gritty team. And I think we have that makeup. But, I mentioned earlier that we have a little bit more depth across our lineup. And I think we're going to need multiple contributors from that. I think we have the tools to make that happen, but it's just a matter of if we can execute it and get it done.
Well, we look forward to seeing your team. We'll look forward to seeing them. You'll start the year in Orlando, a place you're going to be. You've been there a few times, and we look forward to seeing your team all year long. But I appreciate you taking the time from a busy schedule as you get set for the season. This was a blast to talk to you. Like I said, like I told you off the air, I've been a fan of yours since I saw you play in person there as a Seminole and then into the NPF. So it was a pleasure to watch you play. And it's been a pleasure to watch your coaching career blossom like it has. So thank you so much for talking to us, and we hope to do this again down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. Thank you for the kind words, and thanks for being a part of the sport and helping it grow.